The mediocre life lives in the in-between. Why the life you want is also the life you're scared to have, and why in an age of AI, it's no longer practical to be an NPC. It's Monday, 12 p.m. I'm supposed to be sitting at my desk, working. I start the car. Something says, fuck it, I'm going on a hike. No permission, no justification, just a man following his own signal. Something in me is just done with telling myself that story today. Done with the voice that says, not yet, not now, finish your work first. It's Monday, for Christ's sake. Finish what work? Exactly. Can you really finish the work you'll have the rest of your life to do? Yeah. Shut the fuck up, Monday. So I get in the car and drive an hour and a half to go on a hike I haven't done in years. No reason, no productivity angle, no content or business strategy. Just because I wanted to. And somewhere on that drive, it hit me. This is it. This is the whole thing I've been trying to say. You can just do things. You don't need permission. You don't need things to be in order first. You don't need to wait until you've fixed yourself enough to deserve the life you actually want. Most people are waiting. They're waiting inside of a waiting room, waiting to finally stop waiting. Waiting to start that business, waiting to start that creative project, waiting to start that channel, waiting to start that relationship, waiting to make that money, waiting to be successful, waiting to buy a house, waiting to get married, waiting to have kids, waiting for the right moment, the right circumstances, the right person, the right version of themselves to finally show up. When I finally get this sorted, then I can. When I finally get this promotion, then I can. When I finally feel ready, then I'll. When I finally get into this relationship, then I'll. When I finally become who I'm supposed to be, then I'll. But here's what nobody tells you. Fear is remarkably good at disguising itself as logic and rationality. In fact, that just might be what it's best at. And we just don't do what we want to do. We have all of these excuses and justifications and reasons. We don't live the life we actually want to live. We don't say what we actually want to say. We don't allow ourselves to feel what we actually feel. So we put on a mask. We put on a guard. This fake, inauthentic version of ourselves. Because admitting the truth would be death. We rent. And we call it responsibility. We rent out our time, our attention, our energy, our body, our sense of purpose, our emotional state, our beliefs, our identity to a world that's very happy to just buy it away from us. Just think of how low of a price the majority of the population allows themselves to be rented for. Now, I have huge compassion for prostitutes because at least they demand a higher price for their body and for their awareness, to sell their body and to sell their awareness. The rented life. Most people live a life they don't really own. Not because they're lazy, not because they're unintelligent, but because nobody ever opened their eyes to any other possibility or another way of life that was different from the one that they were sold by the system. From the moment you were old enough to understand what success meant, the world handed you a blueprint. Here, follow this. Go to school, get good grades, get a degree, get a job, get a promotion, get a house, get a partner. Get the things that signal to everyone around you that you've made it. That you're doing it right. And so you follow the blueprint. You do the things, you hit the milestones, and somewhere along the way, maybe at 24, maybe at 34, maybe at 54, you pause and you feel it. That hollow thing underneath all the achievement, that quiet voice asking, is this it? Not because your life is bad, not because you haven't worked hard, but because you built somebody else's dream and moved into it like a fucking tenant, a background character. You're renting. What does renting actually look like? It looks like spending Sunday dreading Monday. It looks like checking your phone first thing in the morning because someone else's urgency has become your alarm clock. It looks like staying in relationships, romantic, professional, and platonic, that stopped serving you years ago. But you stay because leaving feels more terrifying. And the social, emotional environment already feels familiar. Renting looks like outsourcing your sense of worth to your job title, your degrees and accreditations, your follower count, your income, your bank balance, your body fat percentage, numbers that you started to believe defined your identity. Renting looks like endless deferral. Deferral of what? Deferral of your own life. Renting it away. When I finally get X sorted, then I can start living. But X never gets fully sorted. And the living keeps getting postponed. Here's the question that cuts through everything. When did you last make a decision that was entirely, unambiguously your own? Not influenced by what your parents would think, not shaped by what your peers are doing, not filtered through what the algorithm rewards or what society deems respectable. A decision that came purely from the deepest part of you. The part of you that existed before anyone told you who you need to be, who you should be. And if you're struggling to answer that, perhaps you're renting. And the first step toward owning your life is simply recognizing that you've been a tenant in it. The two traps. Most people wake up to the rented life, but never wake up from it because they do nothing about it. They're trapped in the viciously self-confirming loop of believing they're victims of the circumstances created by the system. A smaller minority of people wake up from this cycle. Something cracks. A psychological breakdown. A breakup. A moment of brutal 2 a.m. honesty after a lonely night of drinking. When the achievements feel hollow, and the performance starts to feel exhausting. And they decide to change. This is where the journey begins. And it's also where most people fall into one of two traps that keeps them stuck in a different but equally suffocating version of the same prison. The first trap is the self-improvement loop. The first thing most people do when they realize that life feels hollow is to try to fix it. They manage their body, they manage their nutrition, they manage their finances, they manage their relationships, their purpose, their mindset, their morning routine, the cold plunges, the meditation, the journaling, the reading, the optimization, the improving, the upgrading. And for a while it works. Matter of fact, it changes your life. You feel momentum. You feel like you're finally doing something worthwhile and something real. Finally becoming somebody worth being. But then one day, somewhere between your third workout plan, sixth supplement stack, and fifth productivity system, you hit a wall. I've been improving for years. Why do I still feel like this? The void is still there. The exact same one. Quieter maybe, better dressed up, in better shape, with better finances, in a better house, with a better car, and maybe even a prettier partner. But it's still there. And the exhausting truth lands. The beauty and exquisiteness of the costume you adorn doesn't actually change the ugliness of the person underneath that you've been trying to fill and put makeup on. The act of trying to fill the internal void with external things guarantees that it stays empty. Because the self-improvement loop, as powerful as it is still operating from the same root assumption as the rented life. I am not enough as I am. I need to become more in order to deserve what I want. The hustle is different, but the wound is the same. The bill to Insufficiency and Inadequacy LLC is due every month. And the price you pay isn't money. It's with your soul. It's with productivity and spiritual deferral. Now there's a second trap, and it's called the spiritual bypass. You go deeper into yourself. You discover meditation, you discover breath work, you discover plant medicine, Eastern philosophy, shadow work, non-duality. You read Eckhart Tolle and Alan Watts and the Tao Te Ching, and something finally clicks in you. Something in you finally exhales. I am not my thoughts. I am the awareness behind them. I am consciousness. I am the universe experiencing itself. And it's true. All of it is true. And for a while it feels like freedom. The grasping softens. The anxiety quiets. You stop needing the external things so desperately. You renounce the material world because you realize that that is not your true identity and the true path to fulfillment. And then you look up from your meditation cushion. You're still broke, still not who you could be physically, still not living the life you actually want to live. And secretly, underneath all the spiritual serenity, you still want the money, the love, the impact, the body, the freedom, the validation, the relationship. You're human. Of course you do. So now you're caught between two worlds. The self-improvement world says, achieve more, become more, do more. The spiritual world says, surrender, accept, let go, dissolve yourself. Do nothing. Just be. And you're standing in the middle of both, not fully belonging to either, but wondering why you feel stuck all over again. This is the in-between. And it's the most important place to understand. because this is where most people live permanently. What is the in-between? The mediocre life doesn't live in failure. It lives in the in-between. And it shows up differently depending on where you are. There's the basic version of the in-between. And we all know this version very intimately. It's the paralysis between two choices, the hesitation between the conversation you need to have, the procrastination before the action you need to take, the endless deliberation that never resolves into any sound decision. It feels like anxiety that hums underneath everything without a clear source. It feels like self-sabotage that starts running precisely when things start getting good. It's self-doubt that happens the moment an opportunity appears. The constant negotiation with yourself. Should I or should I not? Am I ready or am I ready not? What if I'm wrong? What if I fail? What if I choose the wrong choice and it costs me something I can never get back? And so you stay in the middle. Not yes, not no, not moving forward, not retreating. At least that's what you think. You're just hovering in limbo. The basic in between is the space between who you are and who you know you could be. The in between is the space between who you are and who you know you could be. And the terror of fully committing to that crossing. It's not that you don't know what you want, although a lot of times that is the case. It's that wanting it fully would require you to take such a radical and complete degree of ownership over the action. And ownership is terrifying when you've spent your whole life borrowing the consequences. So you stay comfortable in the ambiguity, in the maybe, in the I'll do it when the time is finally right. The time is never right. The time is now, or it is never. The only place you have control over the past and the future is now. Now. Wake up! Then there's a second in between. I call it the advanced in between. And it's a more sophisticated version of the basic one. And it trips up those who have been doing the work. Right? You've read the books, you've done the inner work, you've been through the self-improvement phase, you've touched something real beyond expression in your spiritual exploration. You're not asleep anymore. You're awake enough to see the matrix clearly. And yet, something still feels unresolved, incomplete, like you're standing at the threshold of something but can't quite step through. This is the in-between, between doing and being. Between just understanding the truth intellectually and actually living it from your body, in your relationships, in your work, in the way you move through the world on a Tuesday morning, when nothing is particularly profound. The advanced in-between is subtler and more insidious than the basic version, precisely because it can masquerade as depth, as knowing, as understanding, as knowledge, as intelligence, as self-awareness. You can talk about consciousness and awareness and egolessness and love, but still be operating from fear. You can preach overflow and still be living in scarcity. This is the feeling of imposter syndrome, the fake it till you make it sensation in your body. You can understand every spiritual truth conceptually and still be renting. Because understanding was never the gap, or at least it no longer is. Embodiment is. The cost of the in-between is that in both versions, basic or advanced, the in-between extracts the same toll. It costs you presence. You're never fully here because a part of you is still always negotiating with the version of yourself that you haven't yet become. It costs you love. You can't love fully from the in-between. You can't give what you haven't claimed within yourself. The person who's not chosen themselves fully cannot fully choose another. It costs you your creative power. Your best work doesn't come from the middle. It comes from full commitment to a singular direction, even an imperfect one, but a self-chosen one. And over a lifetime, what does it cost you? This in-between? It costs you everything. Not in one dramatic moment, but in the accumulated weight of all the things that you almost did, almost said, almost became. The in-between is the psychology that's currently running your biology. There's a cellular biologist that I studied for a bit. He's the author of The Biology of Belief. His name is Dr. Bruce Lipton. And he argues that your beliefs and your perceptions, not your DNA, control your epigenetic expression. Your mind determines which genes within you activate, which potentials in you wake up, and which stay asleep, which version of you gets to exist. Right now, the in-between is running your biology. The signal is being suppressed. Not by your circumstances, not by your past, not by your future, not by anyone else. By you. By your own unwillingness to fully arrive. Your beliefs and perceptions are controlling your social, financial, physical, relational, and spiritual expression. The work isn't adding more. It's removing what's suppressing the expression of the desired signal. If you're hyperactive and you can't slow down, you're likely to be avoiding an emotion that stillness would invoke and surface. If you're depressed, inert, passive, procrastinating, you're likely avoiding an emotion that action would otherwise evoke. Different symptoms, same root. Self-repression. Repression of fear, anxiety, shame, loneliness, anger, unworthiness, impatience, self-frustration. The feelings you were taught to never let see the light, to never let be expressed because expressing them was bad. Now, here's the part that a lot of people don't want to hear, is that you're terrified of death only because you're terrified of life. You feel neither half alive nor half dead. Just stuck in the in-between. Anxiety, depression, anger, envy, pride, greed, resentment, and lack of meaning. Constant self-doubt, hesitation, blame, shame, guilt, validation seeking, people pleasing, fear. The mediocrity of purpose, fulfillment, love, wealth, freedom. These things all have one thing in common. They live here, in the in-between. I went to a conference earlier this month. The speaker asked, "What is your anti-vision? What is the thing you're terrified of?" Somebody answered, "Dying with my best ideas still trapped inside of me, never having even attempted them." Dying with that inside of you. The things you wanted to say, the things you wanted to do, the people you wanted to love, the relationships you wanted to have, the amount of wealth you wanted to enjoy, the freedom you otherwise would have been able to experience. Dying with the best ideas, the best potentials still trapped inside of me. Damn, that one hit. So why are we so deathly afraid of the very things that would set us free? Because expressing them fully would require us to give up on the illusions that we've built around who we are. The illusion that allows ourselves to stay unexpressed, safe, contained. Until the pain of staying small finally outweighs the fear of being seen for who we really are. Who we really are. Without the filter, without the mask, without the pretending, without the people pleasing, without the validation seeking. Who we really are. Underneath all of the bullshit we tell others, but worst of all, the bullshit we tell ourselves. Everything you want is already inside you, laying dormant and unexpressed. Your capacity to give and to receive love, your potential in your own physical body, your potential to create massive wealth and abundance, your capacity to feel centered in gratitude, in joy, in fulfillment, even when, especially when, there's no reason to. So what the hell do? You do what Christ did. Unclench your guard. Release your grip. Connect to your softness. Connect to the child inside of you. The wondering, the awe-inspired being that was not limited by conditionals. Feel all of the pain, all of the suffering of yours and of others. Feel all of that rippling through your human heart when you're stuck in that traffic jam with everybody else, when you're waiting in line, when the customer service is shit. Feel the compassion for yourself just as equally as you feel the compassion for the other. Feel how hard we're all trying. Feel all of it. And don't hold back. Hate so fully you can finally love. Scream so fully you can finally quiet. Cry so fully you can finally start to laugh. Die so fully you can finally live. The clarity you're looking for is on the other side of opening the portal to the loving capacity that makes you divinely human. Now here's the thing. We're all terrified of our own capacity to feel because we've all been taught that it's weakness. Good. Let that terror be felt too. It's part of the same current. If you were not capable of being terrified by the depth of your own existence, you would literally be no different than a machine. Heady, logical, entirely mental. And in an age where the machines are arriving, it's no longer very intelligent to continue to operate like one. Feel deeply or don't even bother. Love deeply or don't even bother. Live deeply or why bother? The mediocrity of a man lives in the in-between. So if you're not going to go all the way, why even bother at all? So what's the way out? It's not another self-improvement system. It's not a morning routine or productivity stack or a 12-week program that promises to fix you. It's not spirituality dressed up in business language. It's not the law of attraction, of visualizing your dream life and manifesting it into existence. It's not the hustle gospel, outwork everyone, sacrifice everything, arrive exhausted at a destination you have nothing left in you to enjoy. All of these are fragments, partial truths. Each one contains something very real, but each one, taken alone, eventually collapses into the same void that it promised to fill. It's something underneath them all, designing the kind of life you have no desire to escape from. The self-sustaining life. Your dream life isn't the one that somebody else sells to you. It's the one that you design and you sell to yourself. Because your whole life, people have been selling you the dream. Only you never took the time to realize you could have been the one to sell that to yourself the entire time. Not on anybody else's whim, but through your own conviction, your own decision, your own heart. Your dream life operates from one foundational premise, and it's that you are the architect of your own reality. Enjoying a radical degree of freedom in life is simply the meta skill of consciously designing your own reality. Your beliefs, your meaning, your body, your identity, your vision, your expression, your relationships, your money, your wealth, your freedom, instead of renting somebody else's. Most people spend their entire lives reacting to the movie playing in front of them, trying to change the scenes, fix the characters, control the plot. They exhaust themselves trying to manage external reality without ever realizing they are the source of it. The projector is running behind the audience. It's been running the whole time. It determines everything about the movie, the tone, the quality, the story, the ending. And most people have never once looked behind them to examine what's actually in the reel. Becoming conscious means taking the reel out, examining it, because nothing worth having in life can come before deep self-understanding is established. Understanding what beliefs, what conditioning, what inherited programming has been creating the movie of your life without your conscious permission. And then deliberately, intentionally, and compassionately rewiring it. We don't pursue anything if there's no personal meaning in it. Creating your own reality is simply the pursuit of creating your own meaning out of life. I arrived at an equation after years of oscillating between the in-between. Self-improvement got me the results, but left me hollow. Spirituality gave me peace, but left me incomplete in the realization of my potential. The synthesis, the thing that bridges the two, is this. Freedom is radical self-love plus relentless growth. The harmony of doing and being, the harmony of yin and yang, the harmony of man and woman, of the opposite poles, doing and being. Not one or the other, but both simultaneously. Radical self-love means you stop treating yourself as a broken thing to be fixed and start treating yourself as a being to be expressed. You aren't broken. You're suppressed and underexpressed. There's a difference there. Relentless growth means you don't use self-love as an excuse to stay comfortable. You don't love yourself enough. You love yourself enough to keep expanding, to keep moving toward the edges of what you think is even possible, to keep choosing the harder, realer, fuller version of your life over the easier, safer, smaller one. And together they create something that neither produces alone. A person who is complete and still becoming, present and still building, at peace and still hungry. Not because you're restlessly chasing something outside of yourself, but because you are that which creates. Nourished and still hungry. Hungry and still nourished. So, carve the pumpkin. You buy a pumpkin at Halloween, and you could just leave it on the porch, but it's still a pumpkin. It does the job. But what would be the meaning of that pumpkin if you never carved it? Your life is the same. You were given this existence, this body, this mind, this particular intersection of time and circumstance and consciousness. You could leave it uncarved. Most people basically do. Or if they don't leave it uncarved, they just plop a template cutout of it. Or you could take the time to understand what's inside it, to excavate it, to carve it into something that expresses the full weight of what you actually are. Something that, when the light is placed inside it, illuminates. Life only gets as good as your imagination of how good it could be. Become obsessed with the imagination, and then create what you imagine by living it. Not in the future, but asking yourself, how can I live it today? Master the game of life. You're playing a game, you're playing many games, whether you know it or not. The only question that matters is whether you chose it. If you're playing a game you never consciously selected, a game you inherited from your parents, your culture, your school, your social media feed, you're losing. No matter how well you perform within it. No matter how many of its vanity metrics you hit. Because the vanity metrics are the trap. Every game has a different vanity metric. But nonetheless, they are the trap that keeps you unhappy and unsatisfied. Winning at someone else's game is still losing your own. Architecting your own life is the practice of stepping back far enough to see the games that you're in, and then consciously deciding whether to keep playing it, to modify it, or to build an entirely new one. What is my definition of success, freedom, fulfillment, wealth, joy? What does a life I would be genuinely proud to live actually look like? Not impressive to others, not optimized, not validated, just you. These are not soft questions. They're some of the most important ones you can ask. And most people never ask them, not because they don't care, but because the answers would require them to change their entire life and put themselves first. And in that sense is a unashamedly selfishness. But ironically, in that selfishness arises a sense of lack of selfishness in the most ironic way. The return. Here's what nobody tells you about the other side. It doesn't arrive like a revelation, although sometimes it can. It doesn't come with a dramatic moment of clarity where everything suddenly makes sense and the path forward illuminates itself in a single blinding flash. Although sometimes it can. It arrives calmly. On a Monday at 12 p.m., when you're supposed to be working and something in you just says no. Not in rebellion, not in avoidance, but in alignment. And you drive an hour and a half to a hike you haven't done in years. And somewhere on that drive you realize, this is it. This is what freedom actually feels like. Not the absence of responsibility, not the absence of challenge, not the absence of hard days and uncertain seasons and moments where you genuinely don't know what the fuck you're doing and whether if any of what you're doing is going to work. Freedom is the presence of yourself. Freedom is the presence of yourself fully, unapologetically, completely, deep inside of your own life. I'm going to say that again. Freedom is the presence of yourself fully, unapologetically, completely, deep inside of your own life. I started this by telling you about a Monday at 12 p.m. Supposed to be working, tired of the story. Got in the car instead. That moment wasn't really about a hike. It was about what happens on the other side of the in-between. No negotiation, no justification prepared in advance in case someone asked why I wasn't being productive. No internal committee meeting weighing the pros and the cons. Just a man fully present with what he wanted, acting from that fullness without asking anyone for permission, not even himself. You can just give yourself permission. That's the whole thing. Not a system, not 5 steps, not a program to complete, a certification to achieve, a ladder to climb. Just the willingness to stop renting a life you already own in this very moment. To buy it back, not with money, but with your own awareness. At first, this starts out in tiny increments, but over time, it just keeps expanding and you can't stop it because you don't want to. You know you're meant to experience greater and greater levels of freedom in this life. The basic in-between will tell you that you need more certainty before you move. The advanced in-between will tell you that you already understand this, so why do you still feel stuck? Both are telling you the same lie in different languages. The truth is simpler than either trap wants you to believe. You can just do things. Drive the hour and a half. Make the decision that's entirely your own. Build the identity instead of forcing the willpower. Love fully or don't bother. Live freely or don't pretend you're trying to. Make the commitment. Carve the pumpkin. Don't think your way out of it. Stop asking for permission and you're already there. The mediocre life lives in the in-between. Don't be an in-betweener. Imagine the life that'd be possible if you just got out of your own way. Thank you for listening to this one. This one is Reality Architecture, episode number 11. This was inspired by episode 10, actually, when I just filmed a spontaneous episode. And this is the kind of the continuation from that, as I wrote this into a full article / newsletter. Speaking and writing. Speaking helps me write. Writing helps me think. And I hope this was of value to you and it brought out something in you, that it reawoken something in you. And I'm not going to speak anymore because now you go ahead and do the thing that you've been putting off. See you later. See you in the next one.